This is my last video for 2022, and what I've got in my hand is a Zelos Spearfish GMT. This is the Aventurine. Unfortunately, this watch is sold out on their website. It's sold out within the first hour or so upon launch on the 13th of December. I was actually meant to get this watch before the 13th. It just arrived. So it was out of my control. But I thought, you know what, since I've got the watch here, I might as well give you guys a bit of a run through on the watch, show you the dial, because this dial has got such a unique character. It's got fleck, it's got speck, it's got sparkle. It's definitely an acquired taste. Some are going to love this watch, some are going to hate this watch. But looking by the results of the website, the fact that this sold out within the hour, obviously people loved it. And for me personally, I find it difficult to buy a watch online that looks like this, unless of course I had it in the hand. I think it's a little bit risky going off renders, going off images that are on the website. I would have loved to see it personally before I pulled the trigger. So today's video is pretty much going to be dedicated to showing you some imagery. I'll review the watch, but I'll also show you some really good close-ups, macro, just to give you an idea of what this dial looks like in different lighting scenarios and in the hand. Let's check this thing out. Now Zelos has come a long way in a very short time, and the watches they're producing, they've just gotten better and better. As far as quality, as far as features and what they offer, it's a given. The first Zelos that I reviewed had a Seiko NH35, and if I compare it to something like this today, this thing here is fully loaded. You've got a Swiss Sellita SW330-2, Lume sapphire bezel, incredible bracelet with on-the-fly adjustability, outstanding lume, a funky dial that I've never seen before. And to top that all off, it's got a hardness coating of 1200 HV. So gee, has Zelos come a long way in a short time. Now before I continue, you saw the pop-up. Zelos has sponsored this video. They've sent out this watch and I don't have to send it back. However, with all manufacturers, whatever they send into the channel, they have zero input into the review content. I'll tell you what I think honestly, good, bad or indifferent. Before I show you guys that funky dial in macro footage, let's check out its specs. I measure a case diameter of exactly 40mm, the lug to lug of 46.7, the case height comes in at 13.2 and a lug width of 20. Now the crown is a 6.2mm signed screw down crown. The watch offers 200 meters of water resistance, and the total weight on this bracelet sized to my 18cm wrist comes out exactly at 147 grams. And on the overhead, as you can see, a 40mm watch on my wrist, not a problem. The watch is sitting really nicely, the lug to lug is a good distance. That case height, 13.2, again, not a problem. And the comfort, this bracelet is one of the nicest bracelets in a micro brand. It is so comfortable, it tapers really nicely, the adjustability on that clasp is superb. I think the bracelets that come out of Zelos are right up there with the best micro brands. And the articulation on this is fantastic. Very nice, it tapers to the wrist. You've got female end links, quick release. You've got a milled swivel, and the clasp itself is finished to a T. It features an embossed logo with a high polish center, and with that adjustability on the fly, you really can't go wrong. So hardware wise, this is one of the heroes of the watch. Well done to Zelos. Now if we turn the watch over, you can see there's a sapphire exhibition caseback. And behind that caseback is a Sellita SW330-2, beating at 28,800 vibrations per hour, hacking, hand winding, and approximately 56 hours of power reserve. And the movement has been a joy to use. I think Zelos has put a lot of thought into their watches in the area of quality, finishing, and providing as much value for money as they can for the dollar spent. Now if I turn my attention to that bezel, it's a 48-click unidirectional bezel and it has a lumed sapphire insert. And I think they've done brilliant. The fact that they've got a unidirectional and the fact that it's 48 clicks is perfect. So it caters for half an hour increments for world time. It clicks into place quite solidly. There's a little bit of movement left and right. Nothing really to worry about because when it settles in perfectly. Well done to Zelos for including a 48 click bi-directional bezel. Now if I look at the lume of the watch, it's C3 BGW9, and as with all Zelos watches, they've been great. This one here is no different. For a watch that's not an intended diver but the GMT, it's actually got very good lume, so well done. Now speaking of that GMT, it's not a traveler's GMT, it's a caller's GMT. When you hack the movement, you will not be changing the hour hand independently of the rest of the handset, you'll be changing the GMT hand. And on this particular movement, the GMT hand and the handset lines up perfectly. The watch is sold out, and the hero of this watch is that dial, the Aventurine. And from some of the footage, some of the macro footage here, you can see that this thing here has got a character of its own. Some people are going to absolutely love this dial, some people are going to throw up, it just depends on the individual. Zelos is a company that doesn't play it safe. They're happy to experiment with yellows and oranges and blues and greens and really push the envelope. And that's what they've done here. Now before I get to the negatives and positives of this watch, I think the purpose for me doing this video, I wanted to show you guys pretty much that Aventurine dial. Just to show its character, because for me personally, I'd really struggle to buy a watch like this, just from the renders, just from the actual images off that website. And on that note, what are the positives, what are the negatives of this watch? I'll touch on the negatives. And for me, there's really only one or two negatives of this watch. And one of the negatives I found is that date window at the 6 o'clock. When you get to double digits, it might be a little bit difficult to see. On single digits, it's fine. On double, it does get a bit cluttered. Second negative, or I'll say an observation, the watch itself sits on the wrist really nicely. It's got a nice profile, and to me, it just feels that that bezel is a cylindrical tube sticking up. It would have been nice to have a bit of a chamfer, a bit of a bevel on it, something not as blocky. But again, that comes down to a personal stylistic choice. But even a couple of other people that have seen this on my wrist mentioned the exact same thing, saying, gee, that's a pretty tall bezel. But I suppose being a 40mm case and a 39mm bezel, the fact that it is high with that knurling, it makes it a little bit easier to grip. And probably the last negative is the fact that these are limited to 130 pieces. They sell out really quick. As you can see, this is sold out. Because everything else, the watches that come out of Zelos as a micro brand, they've done really well. The build quality, the finishing, the wearability, the comfort, the fact that this bracelet is so comfortable. You've got a fantastic Sellita SW330-2. The on-the-fly adjustability of that clasp is wonderful. And to top it all off, you've got a hardness coating of 1200 HV. So really, people might complain that this was a little bit expensive at $899, but you know what? There's a lot of watch here. So personally, I want to apologize, guys. It would have been great for me to get this watch earlier so I can get the review out at an appropriate time. As it turns out, it really doesn't matter because the watch is sold out regardless of the review. But it was good to get this on hand, to be able to see that dial, to show you guys close up, to show you guys what it looks like, how it behaves in different lighting scenarios. It's an acquired taste. Some are going to love it, some are going to hate it. Whatever the case, the watch is sold out. We move on from there. Like I said, guys, last video for the year. Happy New Year to everyone. Thanks again for this year and all your comments throughout the year. Your input, your feedback, I really appreciate it. We'll see you all fresh and early in 2023.